Bring him in there. What's
Oh,
up?
yeah.
I
look
love the
at him.
backgrounds at the GM
he's at the
meetings.
Biltmore. Look
Let's
at
go.
him. He's so fancy.
All right, here we go. Scott,
At the Four
Scott, let me
Seasons.
talk. It's the Omni, whatever it's called. I'm not staying here. So AJ's next question is, okay, Ken, where are you staying? You're not getting that information either. I just admire the beauty here, AJ. I did this just for you, man.
I was trying to. I was going to send you like a bottle of wine or something, Ken, but since you won't tell me where you're staying, I'll never be able to do that.
Yeah, what a shame.
He's good. He's good. He's a little busy out there. Let's start here. I mean, we spent the entire first hour on the Yankees, which obviously we cover all teams, but we also haven't talked about the Yanks in a while. And to me, that press conference stood out so much compared to what we usually see or hear, not just from the Yankees, but from any front office member. What were your thoughts, and what was the part where you were like, whoa?
Well, first of all, that was an availability of all the American League general managers. So they were all in that same area at that time talking to various media members. And I didn't stay with Cashman for the whole hour. I circled back like 3 times. What was amazing to me about it, guys, is that it just kept going. And Scott, I heard what you said about maybe being a little too much, but Brian Cashman felt that he's been under fire, and he has. And this was his first time talking to the media in quite some time. And clearly he wanted to defend himself. He wanted to get his own thoughts out there. The popular word, of course, these days is narrative. He challenged some of the narratives that are out there, particularly the ones about the Yankees being so reliant on analytics. And he wanted to establish his own narratives. Now, people will have different opinions of this. A Yankee fan who is frustrated is not going to be any less frustrated after hearing their owner yesterday and then Brian Cashman. But at the same time, you do like the passion. You do want to see the passion. The thing that I still wonder about is, hey, where are the answers here? Now, you want to say it's not analytics, guys. We're fine. We got good baseball. Okay, you were 82-80 last year. How are you going to fix it? And I don't expect any team ever to lay out their plans for how to fix it, but I do expect them in a situation like the Yankees to say something along the lines of, hey, we know we've made some mistakes, which Cashman acknowledged, and we have to do some things better, which he also said, but we have to be in a better place. That's the bottom line here. They've got to fix the team. All the talk, all the noise goes away when you're winning or when your team is good. Now, there's always going to be questions. Okay, we get that. But the Yankees' performance last year raised a lot of questions. Their decision-making over the last, 3, 4, 5 years has raised a lot of questions. And that's the issue. And Brian Cashman can talk all he wants. We can write all we want. Until they get their act together, that's what we're going to be talking about.
And we spent a lot of time on this just now, so we've got a lot else to cover with you. But I just would like to say, since you're part of the FT fam, foul territory was indirectly referenced yesterday because we are just reporting what we hear. And there was a Yankees minor leaguer in Ben Ruda who wanted to make his voice heard at one point and felt like he was representing a large group of minor leaguers and coaches within the org, which he was, especially when we talked to him behind the scenes about the names that he dropped to me that were involved in telling him this stuff. And Cash called him out. I don't know if you saw that, but calling him bitter boy and all of that. So they're watching, Ken. Just letting you know. They're paying attention.
That's fine. I assume they're paying attention at all times.
Exactly. Kratz?
Do you know who else is paying attention? Ken, you have to subside the fire that is running through Milwaukee right now. This whole the story about where does this end? Who made the right decision was fascinating to me.
Well, Eric, this was one of those things, the Counsell decision that we'll be talking about for years. How it went down, who made the right calls, Brewers, Mets, Cubs, just how it all evolves. And I don't know the answers to that, obviously. And it just, to me, is still so shocking what happened. That not only did he leave the Brewers, that wasn't so shocking. That we've been talking about for months. Brewers fans were telling me I was full of it for months. No, this was going to happen. He was going to look for the most money. If the Brewers gave it to him, great, he'd stay in Milwaukee. But that is what he wanted to do. He talked yesterday to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel about wanting a new challenge as well. That's probably true. The Brewers are in a kind of a tough place right now. But the shocking part of this, to me, to everyone in the industry, is that he left for their division rival for the bigger city to the south. All of these things came into play, and it's going to be difficult for him going back to Milwaukee as a manager of the Cubs. We know that. He's almost a pariah. He is a pariah in his adopted hometown. Actually, it is his hometown. It's from the Milwaukee area. So that part of it to me is really the stunner here. But as I wrote, Eric, Craig Counsell's intentions were clear. He wanted to raise the bar for managers' salaries, which is a worthy goal because managers have been underpaid for too long now. And teams kind of undervalue that role. Not kind of, they do undervalue that role. So I understand what he was doing. I just was shocked that it ended up the way it did.
I can't wait to see how this plays out over time and who was right, the Cubs, the Brewers, the Mets, I mean, whoever it is. But there's still some openings out there. And Buck Showalter, Ron Washington, and Anaheim are interesting names. Who's going to get the Milwaukee job is interesting to me. But then there's one still that we've kind of talked about on the West Coast, the Padres. What are they going to do out there? So of the openings that are left, Ken, what do you foresee happening in those spots?
Okay. And I don't know these for a fact, obviously. I'm just kind of going on informed analysis and reporting of what I know. Buck Showalter seems to me to be the favorite in Anaheim. That's for one. Chandler Rome, the Athletics Astros reporter, wrote today that if Joe Espada is not the front runner in Houston, he certainly is a guy that the general manager, Dana Brown, has a lot of respect for and is speaking highly of. So that call will go to the owner, Jim Crane, just as the call on Showalter or whoever the Angels manager, that will go to Artie Moreno. The owners in both those situations will have significant input, if not make the outright decisions themselves. San Diego seems to be Ryan Flaherty, who's been their bench coach and around for a few years, or Mike Schilt, the former Cardinals manager who was on their staff last year. They're also interviewing some others, Benji Gill, Phil Nevin. They're hard to predict, obviously. A.J. Preller has gone through a lot of managers, but it would seem to me Flaherty is a strong candidate there. And then Milwaukee, hard to say. I listed a bunch of names yesterday of guys who they are considering. Don Mattingly was one. Joe Espada was another. Clayton McCullough, the Dodgers' first base coach. Even Ricky Weeks, their former second baseman. So they have a number of guys they're looking at. The Astros co-hitting coach Troy Snitker. They were taken aback by this. Obviously, you have to be ready for Counsell to leave. They knew that was a possibility. But now they've got to act on his replacement, and it's not going to be easy.
Could it be that we could see a dark horse candidate, somebody that's not out there, considering that Matt Arnold has kind of been in the org and they have, somebody, because all this Counsell stuff was really backdoor dealing, not backdoor dealing, that sounds nefarious, but like it's more like, could we see something in the lines of what happened with Counsell happen with the Brewers or happen with any of these other teams?
If you're asking, Eric, if I think they'll go hire an existing manager from somewhere else, I don't believe that's going to happen. One guy I failed to mention who is in the mix there is their bench coach, Pat Murphy, who has been Counsell's longtime guy. He was his coach at Notre Dame. They've been associated forever. I could easily see Pat Murphy going to Chicago to be Counsell's bench coach there. I don't see them doing anything that's shocking. I mean, man, something like what just happened comes around every once or 10 years, and the Cubs seem to be involved each time. When Madden was hired and Rick Renteria was dumped so they could get him, that was 2014. Really, we haven't had a situation like that since. Bob Melvin going to San Francisco was different. It was not the same as this. So I don't see any great surprises along the lines of what we just saw happening. That said, there's a non-0% chance of something crazy happening. There always is.
Hey, Ken, is Shohei Ohtani all the talk at the GM meetings? Like, is that the number one topic when you run into all of the people that you see there, they bring up?
No. He is obviously a huge topic of discussion. Everyone is wondering where he's going to end up. That's been going on for months in baseball. But if I'm talking to the Kansas City Royals GM or the Chicago White Sox GM or the Tampa Bay Rays
Hey!
What?
They're not worried about Shohei Ohtani because they're not going to be in the mix for Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani is in the mix for what? I don't know, 6, 7, 8 teams maybe. So a lot of the teams here are conducting their own business and trying to figure out what they're going to do, and they have no intention of being in on Shohei. They're not going to do that. So it's the talk of the meetings among media, certainly, but I don't know if I would say it's like dominating the discussion. That would be inaccurate.
So wait, so I found it interesting, Ken. We were just talking about Craig Counsell and the Cubs and their $8 million a year for. Wouldn't they seem to be like a team? I know it's been mentioned, and I've read it now the last 24 hours. They might be the team to beat for Shohei because, but then on one hand, you also have people coming out and say, well, because they hired Craig Counsell, they're not going to go for it. But then you have the other side that's like, oh, they're throwing everything at Shohei and huge free agents to make the team better. So which way are the Cubs going to go? Because I think it's fascinating what the Ricketts do with their money.
I don't see them being one of the finalists for Shohei. They'll be in, they'll toss their hat in, but I just don't see that happening. They are definitely in an interesting position now that Counsell is aboard. You hired Counsell and fired David Ross because you wanted better results now. Not in 2025 and 26, now. Now, obviously, it's a long-term move, 5 years, and they're looking at the broader picture as well, but they want to win. So I expect them to be active, but I don't know if I see them in the Shohei Ohtani market. And guys, what needs to be repeated here, we'll see a lot of talk in the next few months, this team emerging, that team emerging. No one knows what this guy wants. No one knows his geographic preference. No one knows his competitive preference. No one really has any idea which way he is leaning. So it's all speculation. You could definitely talk about the Dodgers because they've been planning for this moment. You could talk about the Giants, who just hired Bob Melvin, who has great experience with Japanese players and who want a star. The Texas Rangers have to be considered a legitimate contender because they spent $800 million in free agency the past 2 offseasons, and they've only been emboldened, in my opinion, by their World Series title. Those 3 teams, yeah, I can see the Yankees and Mets and Red Sox dipping their toes in, and maybe even more. But beyond that, I'm not so sure I can identify any clubs, maybe even Seattle, that would be really serious about this.
All right, Ken, last thing before your arms get tired because you keep switching
No, I have
arms.
one.
You do? Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Scott has one because
He's fine. Leave him alone. It's a good workout. I've done it many times.
have you ever seen a guy?
Switch arms.
Okay, perfect. No, that's not what I was going to say. Have you ever seen a guy more unceremoniously let go than David Ross? Who now listen, I know they did this with Renteria for Madden. Okay, but David Ross and Rick Renteria, David Ross was like a folk hero for the Cubs, right? He just got let go, and there was like a 2-sentence thing they put out there, like, we've relieved David Ross of his duties. Thank you, David. And that was it. And then they bring in Craig Counsell. Like, have you ever seen anything in your career where it's been this unceremoniously for somebody that the organization allegedly valued so high?
I don't recall ever seeing anything like that. No, AJ. And certainly this was an unusual circumstance. And as I wrote it today, what the Cubs saw was a possibility, an opportunity to get someone that otherwise would not have been available in normal circumstances, that they maybe only could have gotten this one time. And because of that, and because of what Counsell has accomplished, they felt, okay, we like David Ross, but we love Craig Counsell. We think Craig Counsell will be a better manager. Let's do it. They knew full well how it would look. We all cannot look at this and say, hey, this was cool, man. This is great. No, it stinks. It's not cool. And for David Ross, it's humiliating, it's embarrassing, and probably undeserved. Is he as good a manager as Craig Counsell? No, I would not say that he is. But you don't want to see people treated like that. That said, it's baseball. It's business. This is how America works. I guess the rest of the world works like this too. We've all, well, maybe not all of us, but many of us have lost jobs, and it's never pretty. It never is fair. And things go forward from there. For David Ross, as talented as he is in so many ways, I expect he'll be fine. Maybe he'll even come out of this stronger. But obviously right now, I'm sure he's hurting, and rightfully hurting.
I asked Sahada Sharma yesterday if this is going to break off, if this is going to open up the Pandora's box of spending for the Cubs. And my opinion is they wanted a value. They wanted to overpay for a manager or pay the top dollar for a manager because they want to continue to nickel and dime. Which way do you see it going for the Cubs?
It's a good question, Eric. I don't know. And you're paying top dollar for a manager, but it's still only $8 million a year. That's setup man money. So I don't think that this signals that's where they're going to spend their money and nowhere else. But I don't know that they're going to get that heavily involved in free agency, especially the starting pitching market, because they know, like other teams know, that market can be perilous. And it's not something that they really dallied in much in the past. They did Stroman, but it was a short-term deal with an opt-out, low risk. So I do expect them to spend. They have to. They have an opportunity here. The Brewers seemingly are going backwards. The Cardinals are in a tough position because they need 2, possibly 3 starting pitchers. The rest of the division is getting better, but maybe except for the Reds, not quite there yet. So I do expect them to spend, but I don't expect them to spend crazily just because they got Counsell. And I don't expect them not to spend because they got Counsell either and they're paying him. They have the money to do 2 things at once.
Hey, Ken, can you take us behind the curtain for a moment on how the offseason goes down with teams talking to representation of players? This came up the other day, and some fans were asking about it because someone threw out there that there was, I think the example used was, hey, the Red Sox are talking to Jordan Montgomery's rep. And I said, because I follow what you've done, obviously, very closely, tweet by tweet for years, that every team, and by the way, his rep is Scott Boras, every team is talking to Scott Boras. He even said it the other day on a show, on Joel Sherman and John Heyman's show. He said, I talk to every team about once a week, a rep from each team. So my thing is, when some of that stuff gets put out there, I just want to temper fans' expectations because now we can say whatever we want on a show like this. Do you agree? And also, like, is that how it works where if there's a big agency and they're repping a ton of players, are they not talking to everyone technically? And I could technically tweet every week, hey, the rep for Jordan Montgomery is talking to the Cubs. He's talking to the White Sox. He's talking to the A's. Like, Scott Boras can talk to every team. What does that mean?
Scott, I'm with you on this. And if you do follow me on Twitter or X, you hardly ever see a tweet like that from me. Once in a while, yes, because there might be something surprising, or I might see that a meeting has taken place and it is particularly newsworthy in a way that these other meetings that you just described are not. These other meetings are routine. As you said, everyone is talking to everyone. That means clubs are talking to agents. Clubs are also talking to other clubs. Everyone is surveying the landscape, especially at this time of year when it's early in the offseason. So I don't put much stock in that kind of stuff. Now, when we get down to, let's say, the nitty-gritty of a trade, when 2 teams are really engaged with each other, or in a free agent circumstance, when a team and an agent player are really engaged with each other, that's different. And if I'll say, or if I tweet, a team is in serious discussions with another team or an agent, that's different. That's advanced. The stuff now, the contact that is made, that's not advanced. That's routine. That's all part of this. And most cases, I do not consider it newsworthy.
That's why you're the best in the business, Ken.
I don't know about that, but that's just my view of it.
You're in second place, Ken. Don't worry about it.
Thanks, AJ.
Who's in first?
Everyone else is tied for first, Ken.
Wow, it's so sweet.
Everyone else switching their hands on the phone, standing in front of the fountains in a fancy hotel.
That's right.
AJ needs new material.
Everyone else is not doing that.
It's
a tired act.
That's a good AJ impersonation. That's your best AJ impersonation for sure.
It was good.
I try my best, Eric.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Ken, thanks for joining us. We enjoy the beautiful background behind you, and we'll catch you again on Friday. And enjoy the rest of the meetings out there.
Sounds great, guys. Thanks.
Try not to get sunburned, Ken, at the pool.